Hello everyone and welcome back to ovesen.net and Happy New Year! So this SX-64 project has been a long lasting project, lots of work, and as you can see it is still in bits, but I'm done with the work, so it's only the assembling that's left, but that is gonna come in another episode. This episode is about recapping the machine, and I got all the caps, and yeah, I have recapped everyone, so this video will be about that. Hopefully it will not be too boring. I will speed up the longer sequences, and hopefully it will be interesting to see recapping all the different caps and all the different components, including the CRT monitor. So I just wanted to mention that I have started using Patreon, and if you want to support my channel, you can actually support me on Patreon, so please check out ovesen.net on Patreon, and I'll link to that in the description. So finally I got all the capacitors for the machine, and it didn't take long. Actually delivered from DigiKey in just 3-4 days from the United States. It's amazing. So let's take a look at what we got. We got this big mama. It's a 220 microfarad, 400 volts for the power supply. And here's all the rest of the caps. I think it's around 81 capacitors total. That's electrolyte capacitors, of course. So now I will try to sort these out and start the recapping. And yeah, I won't show the whole recapping process, 81 capacitors. That would be dead boring, but I will show some recapping of all the different boards, and I did take a note of all the capacitors and all their values and all their sizes and things like that, and you can actually find that information on my webpage ovesen.net. I'll start by recapping this CPU board, and here is the list of capacitors, so I'm just gonna follow that and cross everything off as I go. 81 caps, so all the caps are clearly marked in the silk screen, which indicates the plus side. So yeah, I just desolder them and then solder them in, no worries then. And here is the caps. I have marked all the caps on the backside with a black dot, and that makes it easier to not do a mistake. So alright, here we go. So that was all the 11 10 microfarad capacitors, and it went smooth, no troubles, and all the pads look good. So I think this is a good quality board. So now I'm gonna clean up the pads, and I just use a little flux before I remove the remaining solder. So does anyone knows how to actually remove these caps from this strip without using a lot of force like I'm doing now? I'm afraid I'm gonna destroy the caps. There's probably some technique. Time to insert new caps, and these are actually Nishikon. I think they are good quality. 10 microfarad, 25 volts, and yeah, now just need to get the correct polarity, and yeah, it's the longer leg that's always the positive. The caps are in place, and now when I'm gonna solder them in, I'm gonna use this fan which I made. I just bought a 12 volt PC fan, and just added some carbon or coal filter. And I actually got this idea after watching an episode of Noel's Retro Lab, so thank you, Noel. A little bit of liquid flux. Alright, that was the soldering of the caps for the CPU board, and hopefully they all got in the correct direction. Next item to be recapped is this little board on the floppy drive, and it has three small 10 microfarad 35 volts axial caps. So these are the only three axial caps on the whole machine. Alright, that was the floppy drive, easy peasy. Next up is this monitor PCB, and this one is single-sided, so just works on one side, and that means that the solder will not flow through the holes and to the other side of the board. And here's 13 caps of different sizes, 1000 microfarad here, and then we have a lot of smaller values. So that was the monitor board, the small one, and one more monitor board to go. I actually noticed I did the two mistakes when I ordered this caps for this PCB. I mistaken the 22 microfarad from a 2.2 microfarad, and also I just counted 4 0.47 microfarad caps when there's actually 5. Luckily I got some spares, so no problem there. Next is this little CIA board, and it only has two 10 microfarad 16 volts caps. So sometimes a capacitor is a little bit stuck. Often when it's on this large ground plane like this, then I just add some extra solder tin and yeah, do it again. Next, the floppy controller board, and it has only 5 electrolytes. It's time to recap the power supply, and here's where the big ones are, like this big mama here and the beefy ones here. There's even some caps on these daughter boards here, but I'll see if I can replace those without taking those out. So this is quite a big capacitor, 400 volts at 220 microfarad. However, the replacement is only just half the height and still has the same value. So these large high voltage caps can actually be dangerous if you touch the leads and this is fully charged, then you will get a real shock. So what you can do before you solder them out is just shorting out the legs like this. So this has no charge now. So in with the new capacitor, and it should fit perfectly. Yes, it does. Then the rest of the large caps fell right through. That's how I like it. And then we have these large solder blobs. Now that the big ones are off, I can easily desolder these smaller ones on the daughter boards. That was all the caps desoldered. Now I'm just gonna quickly solder in the new caps. Alright, that was all the caps for the power supply, and now I'm just gonna do a little bit of cleaning. So time to solder up the capacitors on the last PCB, and that is the large PCB for the monitor, and it has a good 33 caps, so that's a lot of work, and I found them all here, so ready to rock and roll. So if you remember, I didn't want to completely disassemble this monitor because it became a little bit complicated, but I have it in this box, so let's see if I can actually get it out without damaging anything. And yeah. So I'm just gonna tilt it over, flip it like this, and then you have to solder with the board partially connected to the CRT. That will of course make it a little bit more complicated, but yeah, and for this one it's really really important to be accurate, because these are analog circuits and they need the correct values for all the capacitors to work properly. If I mess this up and do a mistake, I will have to pay with hours of extra work to to unscrew everything and try to figure out what went wrong. And there's also a few bipolar caps on this board, so I have to take extra care not to replace those with polar caps. So yeah. Alright, I'm gonna start with these big ones here and these over here, and I have made a little drawing so I don't get confused by the values afterwards. And then I mark the pins so I am sure what I am desoldering. that was the 13 first caps, and I lay them out in the same order they were on the board. So now I'm gonna find the same values, so I am not gonna do any mistakes. Alright, time to solder in some new caps, and yeah, it should be fairly easy. I can see that there's even marked plus on where the caps go, so that makes it a lot easier. And as always, the minus side is marked with a minus, and it is also the shorter leg. The pads are pretty clear, but I'm gonna clean them with some IPA and yeah, then use some flux. Also clean the top side. Alright, I have turned on the fan, and now I'm ready to solder. It's a little bit awkward angle, but I think it will be okay. Alright, that was all the desoldering and soldering in new caps on the CRT PCB. A lot of work. I think I got everything correct. I have checked and double checked and triple checked. So just a little bit of a cleaning, and then I'm ready to start assembling the machine. So that was a lot of work for recapping all the caps for the SX-64, and I'm not really sure how I'm gonna manage to assemble this machine again, but I think I'll have to go and visit the footage that I already filmed and see how I did it.